Election status, where things stand as of 6 a.m. Eastern Time Thursday. Wall Street is on fire, and what people were Googling on election night. Let's just say Americans had food and booze on their minds. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Thursday, November 5th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
Good morrow, Jill. How you feeling today?
I'm okay. Did you get some sleep? You look
man.
You look chipper this morning.
You know those night. You know when you're running a sleep deficit and you just get like a good 7-8 hours and it's just the best. But the problem is then your alarm rings. And you're like, I would pay $1,000 to not have to wake up right now. That's how I felt this morning. But no, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better. Yes,
you're in your Williamsburg plaid. I like what's going on.
You always give me such a hard time, but that's okay. That's all
right. That's what I'm here for, Carlo.
I know.
Okay, let's get straight to it. So as of this moment, again, 6 a.m. Eastern Thursday, Joe Biden has 264 electoral votes. President Trump has 214. This is according to the Associated Press, which has now called Michigan and Wisconsin for Joe Biden. Pennsylvania, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and Alaska have not been called yet. So should one of the first four go for Biden, he wins, also assuming that AP's Arizona call will hold. Biden has received more than 71 million votes. That is the most in history, surpassing Hillary Clinton's popular vote by more than 5 million.
It is, Joe Biden appears to be on the brink of becoming the president-elect, though, once again, it has not been called. Nobody has called it, neither the Associated Press nor any of the networks. That could happen today, could happen tomorrow, still a lot of votes to be counted. But it's fascinating what's happening, Jill. I mean, Joe Biden is potentially going to win if the numbers hold with something like 52% of the popular vote. That's by our standards in this country, that's pretty much a mandate. And he's on track for an electoral college victory about the same as Trump's in 2016. And yet it feels like, I don't know, everything feels sort of blah, right? Like it feels like there's no catharsis for anybody. And maybe it's just because maybe that will change if it's called one way or another. But it's just, I was thinking about this last night. Like this whole year has had no catharsis, right? We have this friggin' pandemic that never ends. There's never this feeling of like we're on the other side of it. That maybe there feels like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and then it stops feeling that way. It's just like it's just a sense of malaise, I think. I don't know if you feel that way, but the election, it's almost sort of perfect that this is how the election is feeling, sort of in the context of everything else that's happened this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the pandemic has a lot to do with it, and I also think it is a bit anticlimactic just because we're used to getting the big acceptance speech on election night, the balloon drop.
Right.
And we're not going to get that this year, regardless of when it's called.
Yeah,
you'll get honking maybe from a parking lot.
What do you think about, by the way? What do you think about the honking as like the new applause? I kind of like it.
I'm into it.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of into it too. Maybe that'll become like a new thing. Anyway,
what are we gonna do? You can't have these in-person things.
Yeah. I kind of like
it. It's our best option.
I liked how Obama, when he was out on the trail, he was doing the honk if you're fired up, honk if you're ready to go. That made me laugh. One little quibble, Jill. The media backlash is already starting, as it always does after a big story like this. So I just want to throw this out there. I know that it doesn't matter to anybody, but the media is not a monolith, right? We're not all part of like this cabal that meets and decides how stories are going to be framed or decided. But more importantly, the media actually was quite good at predicting what's happening, that what we're in right now was going to be the plausible outcome with, results taking a few days, potential to be contested, President Trump declaring a premature victory. I mean, you and I all predicted this, as did many other outlets. The polls were off. There is a distinction there that I'm sure nobody cares about other than me, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, poor Carlo. Are you feeling beat on or
I just
something?
know I just know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be this whole thing about how the media didn't the media didn't see any of this coming. But I mean, again, we've been saying, you and I, on this very podcast, and we are hardly the be all and end all of the media apparatus, but we have been saying, get ready for it. This is not going to take a day. This is going to take days. President Trump's going to probably come out and declare victory early. We have to see what happens, and that's what's happening.
Okay, the Trump campaign says that it's going to formally request a recount in Wisconsin. The campaign is suing to stop ballots from being counted in Michigan and Pennsylvania, also saying that it's filed suit in Georgia to separate ballots that arrived after the voting deadline. At a convention center in Detroit where mail-in ballots were being tallied, police actually had to push back crowds that were demanding to be let in. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're like a ballot counter, I mean, most years that
Poor
is
people.
the snooze of a job. I mean, this year
Yeah.
you're like on the front lines.
Yeah, these poor folks. I mean, seriously, let's throw it up for the poll workers and the poll watchers and the ballot counters doing this job in the middle of a pandemic. This is a thankless job, and they're doing yeoman's work. The thing about the Trump's so Trump's strategy right now is basically saying that stop counting the ballots, right? The thing that doesn't make sense to me is if you stopped counting ballots right now, Trump would lose, even if he won Pennsylvania, based on what the map looks like right now. So the argument doesn't even actually make any sense. And again, this would all have been avoidable if states like Pennsylvania just allowed these people to start processing the ballots early, right? The idea that you have to wait until after, the polls close to start opening the mail-in ballots is insane. So that it was always going to end up like this, and then you're going to get all of these conspiracy theories about, absentee ballots being faked or whatever, and it's already starting.
Right, and just in terms of labor-intensive tasks and how time-consuming something is, when you just put your ballot in a machine, it gets counted. It's just a
right.
quicker process. If you mail in a ballot, someone has to actually physically open that ballot. I don't know
Compare
if
the
they slide
signatures.
that in. Yes, it takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes. Each one takes a few minutes. Yeah.
I covered many years ago, there was a recount for county executive in Nassau County between Ed Mangano and Tom Suozzi. Tom Suozzi is now actually the congressman for Long Island for Nassau County. He's in a really tough race. I think his is still too close to call. Anyway, I went behind the scenes of what they were doing and how they were. I think this was called by less than a few hundred votes in the final recount. It's a thankless job. I mean, you are going through these ballots. You could see how somebody would make a mistake. In all honesty, there's a reason that when it's at this razor slim margin, I understand a recount. But it's it almost seems archaic in some ways, the process.
Oh, sure. Well, also the as of now, again, it's hard to talk about this stuff because nothing is certain yet. But the margins, even in Wisconsin, where it's relatively slim, they don't look like they're slim enough to trigger a recount. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see maybe today if the Trump campaign gets the ruling on the recount there.
If it's less than 1%, you are allowed to recount in Wisconsin, but that's a lot of votes.
Right.
1%.
Right.
This isn't, when I talk about the county executive race,
Right.
There have been races, local races could be decided by a handful of votes. Anyway, even though Joe Biden appears to be on the brink of becoming president-elect again, I think we're not going to call it. Anything could happen here. But Democrats did have a very disappointing night down ballot. In the Senate, Democrats had raised more than $300 million and ended up losing 6 of the biggest races. In the House, Democrats are going to be keeping control, but Republicans actually on track to pick up at least 7 seats. And at the state house level, the National Conference of State Legislatures predicts that only 4 chambers in the whole country are going to flip, 2 for Dems, 2 for the GOP. That is the lowest number since 1946.
Fascinating. How about Mike Bloomberg spending $100 million to defeat Trump in Florida and just just that money just going down the toilet. Um,
Well,
the
someone
Senate,
got it, right? Like, so it
yeah,
went
yeah,
somewhere.
right.
Someone
Yeah.
made a little bit of money from that.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, the Senate is not a done deal for the Republicans yet. Gary Peters, he just won re-election, the Democrat incumbent in Michigan. Um, Georgia on our minds. It is looking like we're going to have two runoffs for the two Georgia Senate seats in January, which could decide who controls the Senate. So just get ready for that. That's good. There is going to be, talking about money, there's going to be so much money flooding into that state, into these races over the next couple months. That's going to be the big political story of the end of the year. So just gird your loins, get ready for that. But yeah, I mean, on the point about the Dems down ballot, some interesting points here. The GOP did better with women as well as Latinos this year. Ironically, the only voting cohort that it actually did worse with was men. So there's questions about, there was the big sort of framing after the 2018 midterms about the suburban revolt against the GOP and Donald Trump. Was that a mirage? Was that just a one-time thing? We don't know. It's sort of, we thought that was going to be the beginning of something. It doesn't look like it was. So we're in this very odd place, right, where, again, typical for 2020, but we're in this situation where you're feeling good if you're a Democrat, but you're also feeling pretty good if you're an establishment Republican, right, because you're going to likely keep control of the Senate. You've got a hammerlock on the Supreme Court. And if you believe, as I do, and as I've said before on the podcast, that deep down President Trump didn't actually want to win, he just didn't want to lose, he kind of won too, if he ends up losing. And I say that because it's so close, because this election was not a blowout, it means that he's not going to be going into like the sort of political wilderness, right? He is very likely going to become a Republican kingmaker. So just watch. I think that Mar-a-Lago, that's going to become the first stop on the primary tour for any Republicans who have their sights set on the White House, sort of like how they start going to Iowa and eating the corn dogs early in the cycle. I think they go to Mar-a-Lago, kiss the Trump ring on the golf course. That's my prediction.
Wait, you don't think Trump wanted to win? I feel like that's the first I've heard you say that.
No, I mean, I think that he didn't want to lose because he doesn't want to be seen as a loser. But I mean, I think that he's clearly not having fun being president anymore. And I think that, he was, I think deep down he was like, yeah, I did this. It was good. But I think he was saying on the campaign trail in the last days, he was sort of like waxing poetic about his former life and how much it used to be good compared to how it is now. So I think a big part of him would be happy to go back to Mar-a-Lago and just sort of retire.
I mean, the guy had a cameo in Home Alone. That's not going to happen again.
That's true.
I feel like, did that reference go over your head? I feel like you're.
No, I remember.
Okay. Is a divided government good for business? That may be the takeaway, judging from how the market reacted on the first day of trading post-election. The Dow, S&P, NASDAQ all surging in a classic relief rally. The NASDAQ, which is made up of the biggest names in tech, closed up almost 4%, which is a huge pop because the NASDAQ already really, some would say, overvalued, as investors appear to like this idea of a Democratic White House and a Republican Senate. While that all but ensures more gridlock in D.C., it also means it's a lot less likely that there's going to be legislation to strengthen regulation or hike corporate taxes.
Yeah, put another way, it's going to be divided government is probably good for Wall Street and by extension your 401k, your investment portfolio if you have one. But bad for America, in my opinion, if you want to live in a country that actually, does things and solves problems, which I still have the antiquated belief of that's the role of the government. But the big immediate question, I think, Jill, is what happens to the stimulus, right? Is there going to be a second stimulus? And if there is, what's it going to look like? My gut tells me that Mitch McConnell, assuming that he remains running the show in the Senate, that he's going to do exactly what he did in 2011, which is deny a Democratic president the chance to get anything done or have any victories whatsoever. I mean, remember, he said that when he was, in Barack Obama's first term, he said the goal of the Senate now is to deny Obama a second term. So this is a bad situation if you live in a big city like New York, but actually not just places like New York. There's a lot of states out there, including plenty of red states, that are really on the road to financial ruin right now, just because of how the pandemic has just crushed, their incomes in terms of taxes, right? So I don't know, but I worry about the stimulus situation. I worry about New York, especially. I worry about the MTA in New York, which really needs a bailout. But there's a little bit of a fallacy, in my opinion, again, that divided government is good because it leads to compromise. But I think we know from experience now that it doesn't really work like that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I also just think, okay, we've talked about this a little bit on the pod. Mitch McConnell's 78, Nancy Pelosi's 80.
Yeah. I wonder if she loses her speakership. That'll be
That's
another
a big
interesting.
question. I mean, at least the conventional wisdom at this point is that she will not lose her speakership. So basically, we're stuck with the two leaders for another 2 years. The president, whoever it is going to be in their mid to late 70s.
It's ridiculous. It's like, it really is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be ageist, and I didn't mean to cut
It's
you
not
off,
ageist.
Bill.
It's just like, are you in touch with what? I don't know.
No, is the answer.
I
Of
am
course they're
like,
not.
at my age, I mean, I even look at this is such a stupid example, but I even look at like the difference between me running after my toddler and someone who's 10 years younger than me running after their toddlers. Like, I can't do it. And I know that's like a stupid example, but just some new people, please. I mean,
some fresh blood, please. Yes, please.
Okay, just on the topic of business, another story that we're following at Cheddar that's been completely lost in the madness. The Chinese fintech giant Ant Group supposed to be going public today through this dual listing, both in Shanghai and also Hong Kong. It would have been the largest IPO by far in history, but in a shocking move, China's ruling party stepped in at the last minute and yanked the listing. Beijing says that Ant needs to fix some capital requirements if it wants to go public. What really is happening, maybe President Xi is just flexing some muscle, it seems. What is the backstory, Carlo?
Yeah, so this company Ant Group, you may not have heard of it, and why would you? Because it doesn't really. I mean, it exists in America, but we don't really use it here. But it's just it's basically the backbone of the Chinese financial sector, right? It does it's like PayPal times a billion. And they do some other stuff too. You basically do all your financial transactions. So they're going public. It was going to $3 trillion in orders for the stock. China comes in at the last second and says, nah, maybe not right now at least. But what you said is the point that's relevant to even if you're not really interested in this kind of stuff, because what this is saying is the Chinese government is saying that they will show that they're in charge of their economy, even if that means the Chinese investors end up losing out. This has nothing really to do with the U.S. because these stocks were going to be listed on exchanges in China. That's really important. And what's more important is this is a geopolitical story more than a stock market story, because what's happening in China, and I know we've spoken about it before, they are just making this hard turn towards authoritarianism. I mean, it's been authoritarian obviously for a long time, but it's what's happening now is different. And it's going to be a really big issue for the next president, just in terms of dealing with this nationalist China.
You do mention as well that they weren't going public here in the U.S., which is notable, I think, because Alibaba went public in the U.S. Alibaba, it's kind of like the equivalent of maybe an Amazon for China, but again, also much bigger. I was on the floor of the stock exchange. Jack Ma came. He was like a celebrity. Yeah. Jack Ma's who's founder of that company. He's also involved with Ant Group. And, times have changed, right? I don't even know if they considered going public here in the U.S. It was, again, this dual listing, Shanghai and Hong Kong.
And it used to be that China would be like, this is a huge nationalist story for China, right? This amazing Chinese company that's going to become the biggest IPO in history. So.
Okay, we just quickly, we cannot forget about the pandemic. The UK has entered another national lockdown. Restaurants, bars, non-essential businesses closing for at least a month. Households are banned from mixing indoors. Italy also instituting severe new restrictions via a traffic light regional system. So 4 regions, including Milan and the surrounding area, are essentially quarantine zones with no one going in and no one going out. Those restrictions will be reevaluated every 2 weeks.
Denmark, this story is kind of a bummer. It's going to kill its entire population of mink. They're going to cull all 15 million of their mink of the mink population there for fears that the virus is mutating in that animal population and could then jump to humans. It's really sad. And of course, here in the U.S., where we live, we are shattering our single-day record of cases once again. 104,000 new infections just yesterday, Jill. No signs of this slowing.
No. I mean, and I think when you talk about that sort of overall malaise that you had at the beginning of this podcast, I mean, this is kind of why.
Yeah.
I mean, election years past, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you could go to a bar, you could watch the results come in, you can hang with friends. It's just we're in this state where it's like you can't get together with people. It feels very unnatural. And finally, it wasn't just you. Google searches for liquor stores near me hit an all-time high as returns started coming in on election night. Google Trends reported that searches for fries near me also hit a new high.
Fries near me. Are fries a big election night snack? I guess so. I mean, French fries are always good. Yeah, my neighbor was telling me at the mailbox the other day or yesterday that the line at the wine store down the street was a block long at election night. So to your point, Jill, everyone's just trying to get through, right? Whatever it takes, just get us to the next day,
My question is, why don't people already know the liquor store that's near them?
Yeah, really.
This is the first time you've needed. Maybe I have a problem
also,
here, but I'm well aware where my liquor store is.
Also, you're just ordering, while the returns are coming in. Come on, people. It's a rookie move.
All right, we're gonna leave it there. That's what you need to know for Thursday, November 5th.
See you tomorrow, guys.